Walk down one particular street in a brand new Texas subdivision, and something feels wrong before you can name it. The houses are perfect, fresh brick, two-car garages, lawns already sodded a deep uniform green. The streetlights work, the sidewalks are swept. And yet there is not a single car in a single driveway, no curtains in the windows, no porch furniture, no bikes on the lawns, no name on any mailbox. At night, not one window glows. You walk past 10, 15, 20 finished homes, and every last one of them stands empty, never lived in. The whole street was built, completed, landscaped, and then simply left there, waiting for people who never arrived. This one street is a preview of something happening all over Texas right now, at a scale that is honestly hard to believe until you see the numbers. Across the country, the count of finished, unsold, brand new homes climbed to roughly 134,000 by the end of last year. To put that in perspective, at the peak of the housing frenzy in early 2022, that number was just 32,000. It has more than quadrupled in just a few short years. And Texas, according to housing analysts, is carrying one of the largest surpluses of unsold new construction of any state in the entire country. So how does a state end up with entire streets of beautiful empty houses? The answer is a BET that went wrong. For years, Texas was the #1 destination in America for people moving from other states. Builders watched that wave roll in, and they did the logical thing. They bought enormous tracts of farmland on the edges of the metros, drew up master plans for thousands of homes, and started building as fast as they could to meet demand that felt like it would never end. But then the wave broke. Domestic migration into Texas just fell to a 20-year low, dropping from more than 500 new residents a day at the peak to fewer than 200. Mortgage rates doubled. And the buyers who were supposed to fill all these houses stopped coming. The problem is that a subdivision started in 2023 keeps going long after demand disappears. The houses were already funded, already framed, already going up. So they got finished anyway, and now they stand there, block after block, built for a crowd that turned around and went home. Here is how bad the standing inventory has gotten. Redfin's statewide data shows the number of Texas homes sitting for sale running well above where it stood a year ago, with active listings piled up across the state at levels not seen since before the pandemic, and unsold homes now sitting for an average of around 90 to 100 days before finding a buyer. That is the statewide picture Redfin is flagging, and in the towns on this list, it is far worse than the average. So I am going to name Zillow on every single town value in this countdown, and you can check all 10 yourself. We are counting down the 10 Texas towns with the emptiest brand new streets all the way to number 1, which is the single largest unsold build-out in the entire state. Let us start. Coming in at number 10 is Manor, just east of Austin. Zillow puts the typical Manor home value at about $342,000, down 6% over the past year. Manor was one of the first places Austin's growth spilled into when the city got too expensive, and builders responded by carpeting the prairie with new rooftops. Drive through the newest sections today, and you will find finished homes with builder signs still staked in the yard, phases that were supposed to sell out in months, now sitting half empty into their second year. Manor bet that Austin's overflow would never stop flowing. It stopped. And the houses that were built to catch that overflow are still standing there with the lock boxes on the doors, whole cul-de-sacs where the only footprints in the fresh concrete belong to the crew that poured it. Number 9 is Kaufman, out east of Dallas. Zillow puts the typical Kaufman home value at about $300,000, down 4% over the past year, and homes here take an average of around 66 days to go under contract. Kaufman is the classic exurb story. It sits far enough from Dallas that its entire appeal was one thing: cheaper land, which meant bigger new houses for the money. That math works beautifully when gas is cheap and rates are low. But stack a 90% higher mortgage payment on top of an hour-long commute, and suddenly that discount does not look like such a deal. The buyers did the arithmetic and stayed closer in. The subdivisions out here got built for them anyway, and now the model homes sit open on weekends with the sales agent scrolling a phone in an empty kitchen, waiting for a car that never turns in. At number 8, we have Jarrell, up the interstate north of Austin. Zillow puts the typical Jarrell home value at about $300,000, down more than 10% over the past year, one of the steeper drops on this whole list. Jarrell became a poster child for explosive growth, entire master-planned communities rising out of open ranch land seemingly overnight. But Jarrell had almost no economic base of its own. It was not a job center. It was purely a place to build cheap houses and sell them to people commuting somewhere else. When those commuter buyers evaporated, Jarrell was left with the rooftops and none of the reasons. That is why the price fell double digits here, while it barely moved in sturdier towns. Number 7 is Anna, further north on that same Collin County corridor. Zillow puts the typical Anna home value at about $360,000, down almost 9% over the past year. Anna was one of the fastest growing small towns in the entire country during the boom, and you can still see the ambition in the ground: wide new boulevards leading to sections that are only half filled, amenity centers finished and waiting. Anna is where you start to see the incentive war up close. Builders sitting on unsold inventory here are stacking discounts, tens of thousands in price cuts, rate buy-downs, closing cost help, anything to move a house. And here is the tell. When a builder is throwing that much money at you, read it for what it is. That is a distress signal from a company sitting on too many finished homes with not enough people walking through the door. Number 6 is Melissa, right next to Anna, and this one has a number that stops you cold. Zillow puts the typical Melissa home value at about $435,000, down more than 6% over the past year, but the timeline is the real story. Zillow shows the typical Melissa home now takes around 88 days to go under contract, nearly 3 months. For a town that was selling homes in a weekend just 3 years ago, that is a stunning reversal. Melissa built up market, nicer, pricier new construction aimed at move-up buyers, and that is exactly the buyer who has vanished hardest, because that buyer already owns a home they cannot sell and a low rate they refuse to give up. So the upmarket houses sit the longest of all. We are halfway down the list, and it gets worse from here. So if you are finding this valuable, do me a quick favor and subscribe to Texas Pulse and hit that like button. This is the kind of thing we dig into every week, and it genuinely helps these breakdowns reach more people. Number 5 is Hutto back near Austin. Zillow puts the typical Hutto home value at about $353,000, down almost 11% over the past year, the steepest fall we have hit so far. Hutto is a masterclass in the phasing trap. A developer plans a giant community in phases. Phase 1 sells well during the boom, so the builder confidently breaks ground on phases 2 and 3, assuming that momentum will continue. Then demand dies. Now phases 2 and 3 are finished streets of empty houses, built entirely on the strength of a phase 1 crowd that was the last crowd to ever show up. Hutto has whole sections like that, brand new and hollow, where the amenity center at the front of the community is finished and open. The pool is filled and cleaned every week, and almost nobody uses it because the houses behind it were never sold. A pristine playground with no children on it tells you everything about how the BET went. Number 4 is Princeton, and Princeton is so overbuilt that the town itself hit the brakes. Zillow puts the typical Princeton home value at about $300,000, down almost 8% over the past year. Princeton was at one point the single fastest growing city in the entire United States. Builders flooded in so fast that the town literally paused new residential permits because the roads, the water, and the public safety could not keep up with the sheer number of houses going in. Think about how rare that is. A Texas town telling builders to stop. And even with that pause, Princeton is sitting on well over 1,000 active listings, a mountain of new and nearly new homes chasing a buyer pool that thinned outright as all this supply came online. Before we get to the top 3, I want to hear from you in the comments. Have you driven through one of these ghost subdivisions, these finished streets with no one living on them? Or are you actually looking at one of these deeply discounted new builds right now, wondering if the incentives are a trap or an opportunity? Tell me your town below, because the view from the ground in these places is something no spreadsheet captures. Number 3 is Fulshear, west of Houston, and Fulshear is the sneakiest entry on this entire list. Zillow puts the typical Fulshear home value at about $608,000, and here is the twist that makes it dangerous. That value is actually up slightly over the past year. Fulshear looks like a raging success, one of the most sought-after master-planned corners of the entire Houston region. So why is it on a list about empty houses? Because Fulshear kept building at a luxury scale for a luxury buyer, and the sheer volume of high-end new construction going up here is enormous. The homes are gorgeous, and many of them are empty, waiting on a thin slice of buyers who can afford a $600,000 house at 7% interest. The price holds because the neighborhood is genuinely nice. But drive the newest sections and you will still find the same finished, unlived-in streets, just with bigger houses on them. Number 2 is Prosper, one of the wealthiest new construction corridors in all of North Texas, and it proves that even luxury is not immune. Zillow puts the typical Prosper home value at about $790,000, down almost 6% over the past year. Prosper built enormous estate-style communities on the promise that the flood of high-earning corporate transplants would never slow. But the market for an $800,000 house at 7% interest is thin, and it got thinner fast. Inventory here has climbed to more than 7 months of supply deep into buyer-favorable territory, with roughly 4 in 10 listings already cutting their price. Prosper shows you that building for the top of the market carries the same risk when buyers step back. It just means the empty houses are bigger, the cul-de-sacs quieter, and the wide driveways sitting there without a single car on them. A luxury ghost street is still a ghost street. Before I name number 1, understand what it actually is. Every town on this list has empty new streets. Number 1 has the single largest stockpile of unsold master-planned homes anywhere in Texas, an entire city built ahead of a future that has not arrived. That town is Celina, north of Dallas. Zillow puts the typical Celina home value at about $530,000, down almost 10% over the past year. Now sit with the scale of this place. Celina has nearly quadrupled in size since 2020, growing almost 285% in 5 years, one of the fastest expansions of any city in America. To feed that, builders like Toll Brothers, Taylor Morrison, and Highland Homes launched enormous master-plan communities all at once, tens of thousands of lots, and then the buyers slowed down. Today, Celina is sitting on more than 2,500 active listings, a staggering number for a town its size, and its typical home value has fallen nearly 10% in a single year. Whole master plan sections stand finished and nearly empty, model homes open with no one touring them, amenity centers and pools built for families who are still just a projection on a developer's spreadsheet. This is the town from the very beginning of this video. The perfect street of perfect empty houses multiplied across an entire city. Celina did not build a neighborhood ahead of demand. It built a city ahead of demand, and now it waits to see if the people ever actually come. So that is the real story hiding in all these beautiful, empty streets. This was not a natural disaster or a sudden crash. It was a BET. Texas builders wagered that the greatest migration boom in modern American history would simply never end, and they poured concrete on that assumption by the square mile. When the people stopped coming, the houses kept getting finished, and now the state is dotted with brand new ghost subdivisions waiting for a crowd that changed its mind. If you found this breakdown useful, subscribe to Texas Pulse, because we track exactly this kind of shift every single week, long before it reaches the headlines. Now here is the question that should be nagging at you, and it leads straight into the next video. If nobody wants these overbuilt towns, if the buyers walked away from all this shiny new construction, then where on earth did they go instead? Because the people did not stop needing somewhere to live. They just went looking for value for the towns where a house still makes sense at today's rates, where your dollar stretches and your commute is livable. We found them, the Texas towns quietly filling up while these ones sit empty, the cheapest places in the state where ordinary people are actually still closing on homes and moving in. That video is next, and it is the exact mirror image of this one. I will see you there.